The Israelites again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord after Ehud had died. So the Lord sold them into the hands of Jabin, king of Canaan, who resided in Hazor. The commander of his forces was Sisera, who lived in Harosheth of the nations. Then the Israelites cried out to the Lord, because Jabin had 900 iron chariots, and he harshly oppressed them for 20 years. Deborah, a woman who was the prophetess and the wife of Labatheth, was judging Israel at the time. It was her custom to sit under the palm tree of Deborah between Ramoth and Bethel, under the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites went up to her for judgment. She summoned Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali. She said to him, "Hasn't the Lord, the God of Israel, commanded you, 'Go, deploy the troops on Mount Tabor, and take with you 10,000 men from the Naphtalites and Zebulunites? Then I will lure Sisera, commander of Jabin's forces, his chariots, and his army at the Wadi Kishon to fight against you, and I will hand him over to you." Barak said to her, "If you will go with me, I will go. But if you will not go with me, I will not go." "I will go with you," she said, "but you will receive no honor on the road you are about to take, because the Lord will sell Sisera into a woman's hand." So Deborah got up and went with Barak to Kadesh. Barak summoned Zebulun and Naphtali to Kadesh. 10,000 men followed him, and Deborah also went with him. Now Heber the Kenite had moved away from the Kenites, the sons of Hobab, Moses' father-in-law, and pitched his tent beside the oak tree of Zenonim, which was near Kadesh. It was reported to Sisera that Barak, son of Abinoam, had gone up Mount Tabor. Sisera summoned all his 900 iron chariots, and all his people were with him from Harodesh, from the nations, to the Wadi Kishon. Then Deborah said to Barak, "Move on, for this is the day the Lord has handed Sisera over to you. Hasn't the Lord gone before you?" So Barak came down from Mount Tabor with 10,000 men following him. The Lord threw Sisera, all his charioteers, and all his army into confusion, and the sword before Barak. Sisera left his chariot and fled on foot. Barak pursued the chariots and the army as far as Harosheth of the nations, and the whole army of Sisera fell by the sword. Not a single man was left. Meanwhile, Sisera had fled on foot to the tent of Jael, the wife of Heber the Kenite. Because there was peace between Jabin, king of Hazor, and the family of Heber the Kenite, Jael went out to greet Sisera and said to him, "Come in, my lord. Come in with me. Don't be afraid." So he went into her tent, and she covered him with a rug. He said to her, "Please give me a little water to drink, for I am thirsty." She opened a container of milk. She gave him a drink and covered him again. Then he said to her, "Stand at the entrance of the tent. If a man comes and asks you, 'Is a man here?' say no." While he was sleeping from exhaustion, Heber's wife Jael took a tent peg, grabbed a hammer, and went silently to Sisera. She hammered the peg into his temple and drove it into the ground, and he died. When Barak arrived in pursuit of Sisera, Jael went out to greet him and said, "Come in, and I will show you the man you are looking for." So he went in with her, and there was Sisera laying dead with a tent peg through his temple. That day God subdued Jabin, king of Canaan, before the Israelites. The power of the Israelites continued to increase against Jabin, king of Canaan, until they destroyed him. Most Old Testament judges seem very different from our modern concept of judges. Rather than arbitrate between right and wrong, they were more likely to be military leaders, delivering Israel from some foreign oppressor. Deborah, the only woman judge, seems like our modern judges. People came to her for wisdom and to settle disputes. Israel's military leadership. Jael and her husband Heber the Kenite lived in Kadesh, far from the rest of their tribe. Historically, the Kenites acted as Israel's allies, providing refuge for Moses when he fled from Egypt, and guiding the Israelites on their journey to the Promised Land. But when Heber's family had an alliance with Israel's enemy, King Jabin of Canaan, when Xerxes entered Jael's tent, she found herself caught between conflicting loyalties. Should she help Israel or their oppressors? Throughout the Old Testament, the Israelis struggled with the decision to remain loyal to God. They continually chose to do evil in the Lord's sight rather than live as God instructed them, like in 4:1. But God repeatedly used people like Jael to bring about Israel's repentance and redemption. When Jael killed Sisera, Israel saw God defeat Jabin, the Canaanite king, 4:23. This victory was long awaited and much celebrated. Afterward, Israel lived at peace for 40 years, 531. Even so, the Israelites might have saved themselves considerable trouble if they had obeyed God and driven the Canaanites out of the Promised Land 120 years earlier. Too often, we live like rebellious Israelites. We procrastinate when what we're asked to do sounds difficult or painful. We put off the hard work of becoming like Christ. And though it may bring us temporary comfort, it ultimately leads to deeper heartache and unrest. Jael's action teaches us that we shouldn't hesitate to deal with things that are opposed to God. This doesn't mean that we're called to drive a tent peg through someone's head, because our war is not against flesh and blood, but spiritual forces. See Ephesians 6:12. So how do you deal with the spiritual opposition you face? Do you put it off like the Israelites? Or, like Jael, do you do what it takes to remove the opposition? Though that work may not always be easy, we can draw strength and courage from God, who will be present with us wherever we may go.